When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you? Jesus Barabbas, or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do, then, with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified.
The Romans are the problem, not the Jews. The Romans are the problem. They've always been the problem. They're in the marketplace. There's Romans outside the temple. They take our land. They take our women. They take everything. It's the Romans that are the problem. At least they haven't taken the taverns. That's okay. Let me tell you about this. The Romans. If it wasn't for the Romans, I wouldn't have almost been a dead man. What? No, you be quiet. If it wasn't for Jesus of Nazareth, I'd be dead right now. If it wasn't for Jesus, I'd be being flogged right this minute. Thank God for Jesus of Nazareth. Let me tell you how Jesus of Nazareth saved me. This is how it happened. I have heard of Jesus. A week ago, I heard he was coming into town. Everybody heard he was coming into town. But I had hopes for him. Here's how it goes. When I was 9 years old, it's the first time I saw a man die. A Roman centurion took a sword and killed a Jewish rabbi who would not say that Caesar was God. It was on that day that I realized that you either take power or you fall to power. So when I heard Jesus was coming into town, you've probably heard of him, just about everybody has. Jesus the prophet, Jesus the healer, Jesus the teacher, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's all we've heard about. But he was coming to town. And on that day, last Sunday, he became Jesus the Messiah. You see, he was coming into town. This was a good move on his part, riding on a donkey. See, I'm thinking once he gets in, he's going to start the revolution. I get called a revolutionary, but I'm not a revolutionary. Revolutionaries take over illegitimately. I'm a freedom fighter. This is our land, and it's been our land since God gave it to us. See, people think, oh, Barabbas, he's not a religious man. That's not true. This is our land, and the Romans are on it. And the only way to get it back is to fight. And when Jesus rode into town, did you hear what the crowds were yelling? Save us. Messiah. See, the crowds knew this was our chance. This was the opportunity for us to start the freedom fight, not the revolution, to take our land back. This was our chance. Jesus, the Messiah, was coming to save Israel. All the fanfare was going to come true on that day when he rode into town. Then I saw his face. I could tell by looking at him he was a man of peace. So I changed my plans. I was going to join up with him. I had met his follower Judas. We talked. Judas had it right. Judas understood the only way to get the land back was through power, to fight for it. I heard he's dead now. But Jesus, I still don't understand him. Because he came into town riding on a donkey, and then when I see his face and how kind he was to people, and he healed people. You don't heal people when you're planning on killing people. That's a rule to live by. But then he goes up to the temple and he tears it up. He turns the tables over, runs people out of the temple with a whip. That's a freedom fighter. So I got back to my first plan. I was going to kill centurions. I did one, and I got arrested. I learned something. Never kill a centurion in front of another centurion. Because then you end up in front of Pilate. So I got arrested, and I figured I'm never going to see this Jesus again. I was less than 24 hours away from being flogged and crucified. As a matter of fact, a couple of other people are going to be crucified today. I was supposed to be one of them. And then I'm sitting in my cell waiting to die. And in comes a guard with a smile on his face, and he says, "Don't get your hopes up." Which I rarely get my hopes up. But he said, Pilate has remembered that he's got to let one of you, and he used a word I can't say here, but he said he's got to let one of you go today. I figured my chances weren't good against anybody. I'm not real popular. But they drug me out. When they put me out in the daylight, I thought maybe the sun was playing a trick on my eyes, because I thought for a second I saw Jesus. But he didn't look exactly right, because the guy standing across from Pilate had been pretty badly beaten. But Pilate asked him a few questions. And here's what I don't get. I know that he knows that if he had just answered the questions the right way, he would have gone free. Jesus, the Messiah, didn't answer him at all. I could tell Pilate was getting a little frustrated. I tried to warm up to him. He's not very warm. But at the point where Pilate had had enough, he called to the crowd and said, "Okay, who do you want me to let go? Jesus or Barabbas?" I had watched this crowd lay down their cloaks and their palms and cheer and yell for Jesus. So I just glanced at the centurion guard and shrugged because I knew I was dead. And then it happened. A few of the religious leaders started yelling for me. A few of the top-ranking Jewish officials started yelling, "Crucify Jesus." Well, Pilate looked at me because he knew I should be the one to die today. And I knew it would be Jesus, not me. Because the crowd got louder, and it got louder, and it got louder. And this Jesus, who was a man of peace, was going to die. And Barabbas, a man of war, was going to go free. Wait, do you hear that? Wait, oh, wait. I think they're coming. Shh.
Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink, mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. And sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him: "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 rebels were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, I am the Son of God. In the same way, the rebels who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. From noon until 3 p.m, darkness came over all the land. About 3 p.m, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately, one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, surely he was the Son of God.
I've watched a lot of men die. I've killed some. I've seen more than my share crucified. But I've never seen this. When I went out of the tavern, there's a crowd in the street. A man fell at my feet carrying a crossbar for a cross. I've seen them before. I didn't recognize the man carrying the cross, even though I had seen him 4 hours earlier. He was beaten beyond recognition. I knew it was him because his eyes were the same. But that was it. He had no business being alive at all. I don't know how he got that far. They wanted someone to carry the rest of the way. They grabbed some African guy, made him carry the cross for him. I decided to follow. I felt like I owed him that. They got up to the hill. There were two already hanging. One of them I know. The empty cross was for Jesus. The soldiers laid him down on the ground. Anyone who's going to be crucified struggles. tries to fight for the last couple of moments of no pain. Jesus didn't fight. He was that same man of peace that I saw ride in 5 days earlier. When they drove the spikes through his wrists, every man screams. But after that, he said, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were crucifying an innocent man. But he said, Father, forgive them. I could not. They put him up onto the cross between the other two. If I was an innocent man being crucified with two criminals that deserve to die, the last thing I'd do is have a conversation. He spoke to them as though they were friends. One of them made fun of him. Jesus didn't care. The centurions that had beaten him and nailed him mocked him. They spit at him. They made fun of him. The religious leaders that say that they follow God mocked him. Told him, if you're the Son of God, come down, prove it, as though somehow he could. They gambled for his clothes. You see, when you're a warrior, even though you kill people, you respect them. These people showed no respect. I could understand not showing respect for the guy that I knew, because I knew what he had done. But these people, they knew what Jesus had done, which was nothing except heal some of their sick, teach to turn the other cheek. I don't really know what that means, but I do know that they're the words that come from a man of peace. And then at noon, even though there were no clouds to block the sun, it got dark. And I could tell that it caused fear in the centurions. It caused fear in me. For 3 hours, it stayed dark. The centurions wanted it to wrap up, and so they started breaking the legs of the 3 on the cross. They didn't break Jesus' legs. The first sign of respect I saw from them all day. But Jesus was so close to death, they knew that if they just speared him, he would die. They did. And he did die. This Jewish man that I never knew, that people claimed as their Messiah and then abandoned. Even his friends abandoned him. None of the 11 that were left came. There were a couple of women there that cared for him. But he was alone on his cross. when he died. And he said this, the loneliest thing I've ever heard. Just before he died, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? I could understand God forsaking me or the other two. But this man, this Jewish preacher, this failed Messiah, died. And what I realized right when he died was that even though he may have failed to save Israel, Jesus of Nazareth saved me. Jesus of Nazareth. He never met me until he set me free, died in my place. Thank God for Jesus of Nazareth.
Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. Yet who of his generation protested? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was punished. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. For it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And though the Lord makes his life an offering for sin, he will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death, and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors.